Chapter 6. The Whispering Fountain. A possible answer to this question came to the friends on Monday, when the two of them were in Mr. Porter's art class. "Look what I have," Scooter said, showing Hoggie a book.
"What is it?"
"Just some book I found in my dad's library. He ordered it through mail last year."
"The History of Florence."
Hoggie read the book's title. She then opened the book and turned a few pages.
"Wait a minute," she said. "This isn't about Florence. It's some sort of engineering book."
Indeed, instead of photographs of paintings, castles, and churches, the book contained pictures of machines and diagrams of electric circuits.
"Exactly,"
Scooter confirmed.
"Somebody must have made a mistake at the printing shop. They took the engineering book and put it inside a cover for the History of Florence."
"And nobody noticed?"
Scooter shrugged.
"They print millions of books every year. Bound to make a mistake from time to time."
"Why are you telling me this?"
Scooter leaned over the aisle to bring his face closer to Hoggie's.
"What if we could not find the mirror, because it is hidden inside another book's cover?"
Hoggie winced.
"Are you saying we have to go through the entire library again?"
"You have other ideas?"
Hoggie did not. She leaned back in her chair and exhaled noisily.
"This is becoming really boring."
Scooter nodded.
"I see now why Dr. Barnaby would rather pay somebody to find the book for him. Well," he added, "let's start at the first floor this afternoon."
"You have 10 minutes left," Mr. Porter announced just then, "and a reminder to those who wish to participate in this year's art competition, your drawings are due at the end of this week."
Hoggie and Scooter went back to their assignments. The theme of that day's art class was an illustration to one's favourite book. Hoggie had started drawing the track across Patagonia from Jules Verne's In Search of the Castaways, but realized only too late that her imagination was a lot better than her drawing skills. By now, she had tried to draw a condor snatching away young Robert Grant several times, but every time the condor had come out looking like an oversized pigeon. Hoggie sighed, and looked around at the other students' work. Pickle was sitting just 2 seats ahead of her. Hoggie craned her neck to see his easel. She felt a certain satisfaction at learning that the bully was even less of an artist than she. He was not even trying. He was just doodling some bizarre little creatures, ugly, disproportionate, and mean. Mr. Porter often said that one's drawings were the reflections of one's true self. If the art teacher were right, it occurred to Hoggie then, Pickle was a really twisted, malicious little man. She then looked at Scooter's illustration. He had been drawing King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Scooter wasn't a particularly strong artist either. The figures of his knights were coming out too small and too angular. Still, each of the knights had a personality, and there was something truly dignified about their gathering. Suddenly, Hoggie caught a glimpse of Brick's easel. She did not recognize the book which the boy was illustrating, but it must have been a fantasy story, because the drawing featured a castle on a rocky island under attack by a flying, fire-breathing dragon. Hoggie had to admit that Brick was good. So good, he could probably make a living as an artist. The castle in his illustration, illuminated by the dragon's fiery breath and sprayed with the sea's foamy water, looked quite real. The dragon was absolutely terrifying, and, unlike all those other dragons from fantasy books that always looked too fat and with wings that were too small to lift them, was anatomically proportional. Were it real, it could actually fly. Hoggie and Scooter spent the rest of the day and the rest of that week revisiting every one of the library's many rooms. And because now they had to leaf through every single book to make sure that it was exactly what its cover claimed it was, their hunt took even longer than before. The children were spending so much time at the library these days that they were beginning to feel like prisoners. The only thing that comforted them was the notion that because the weather was exceptionally nasty all week, they wouldn't be able to go outside anyway. On Saturday, however, things changed for the better. They still did not have the mirror, but the rain that had been pestering London for several days had stopped at last. A fresh breeze from the sea scattered away the clouds, and the sun generously poured its light onto the city. It was as if nature had decided to give the children a little reward for their hard work. Hoggie and Scooter took Higgledy and Piggledy and went to visit Icarus. At lunch-time the bookseller closed his shop, and the three of them bought some delicious curry and had a picnic in a nearby park. As Hoggie ate her spicy potatoes, she watched Higgledy and Piggledy chase each other around the Whispering Fountain. Strictly speaking, the Whispering Fountain was not called the Whispering Fountain. It did not have a name at all. Hoggie called it so, because every time she sat near it, it seemed to her that the fountain was trying to speak to her in a very soft voice. That sunny day the fountain was on, and the girl could once again hear the water running through it, breaking into a chorus of melodious sounds. When Hoggie was younger, she even imagined that there were a handful of tiny little men trapped inside the fountain. But whenever she told anyone about the whispers, people would tell her that it was the water pressure changing, or a pebble trapped in a pipe. Just then, one of the pugs jumped into the fountain, and began to splash happily.
"Piggledy!" Hoggie cried. "Get out! You'll catch pneumonia!"
Piggledy ignored her, and so Hoggie had to get up and fish him out of the water. As she set the dog back on the grass, she saw a plaque on the fountain's spout. Of course the plaque had always been there, and Hoggie had seen it before. But it was today that she, for the first time, took notice of what the plaque said.
"Made by Alexander Libri in 1920.
Hoggie read. It took her a few moments to remember where she had seen the name.
"Alexander Libri!"
she exclaimed.
"That's where I know him from. He built the Whispering Fountain." "Actually," Icarus noted, "it is called the Singing Fountain." "The Singing Fountain?"
Hoggie sat on the bench next to the bookseller. Icarus nodded.
"Inside all that cast iron and stone, there is a set of pipes, each of a different diameter, and each possessing a unique voice, much like flutes, clarinets, and oboes in an orchestra. And when water runs through them, they sing together quite beautifully. Or they used to, anyway." "Why don't they sing any more?" "The fountain has not always been here, you know," Icarus explained. "It was originally in a little square near the university. But 30 years ago or so, it was moved. And while it was being moved, it was broken."
"Do you know why Alexander Libri's name is carved on the city library's wall?" Scooter asked then.
"It should be. He designed it," Icarus replied. "Libri designed quite a few buildings in London. Do you know Peacock Mansion, just north of the park? He designed that house too."
Scooter had been to Peacock Mansion on a school outing. He particularly liked the stairs that wound to the core of the mansion, elegant and smooth, like a snail's shell.
"It's a beautiful house,"
Icarus agreed.
"Do you know that there is a secret underground passage that leads from Peacock Mansion all the way to the river? The mansion's original owner, millionaire Francis Peacock, had it built so that he could sneak out of the house and go fishing during the boring society parties his wife used to throw."
"Does the secret passage still exist?"
"I imagine."
"And how'd you get there?"
Icarus shrugged. "Wouldn't be much of a secret if I knew, would it? There must be a hidden door somewhere on the mansion's ground floor. But I fear we'll never find it, because both Alexander Libri and old Francis Peacock are dead."
"And the people who live in the mansion now can't find the door?"
"Not without tearing the whole place down."
Scooter sighed. "Pity."
"But you can still visit the echo chamber in the old Britannia Bank."
Icarus cheered the boy up.
Another of Alexander Libri's creations."
What's so special about this echo chamber?
Icarus paused for a moment, recalling the details of this story.
"The owner of Britannia Bank, in spite of being one of the richest men in London at the turn of the last century, was a complete miser. He was convinced that everyone was trying to steal from him. And so, when he commissioned Alexander Libri for a new building for his bank, the greedy banker asked the architect to design his office in such a way that, in it, he could hear everything that was being said in the bank's other rooms. The man hoped that that way he would know if any of his clerks were stealing from him."
And did it work?
"I don't know if it helped the banker to protect his money," Icarus replied, "but Alexander Libri, indeed, built such a room."
All that day, Hoggie's mind kept going back to Alexander Libri and his creations. As she thought more and more about the famous architect and his fondness of secrets, a very unexpected, very impossible, and very interesting idea came to her. It was so interesting that she could not wait until morning to share it with Scooter, and so she called him in spite of the late hour. The telephone rang 24 times before Scooter, his voice hoarse and groggy, finally answered.
Who's this?" "Scooter,"
Hoggie said without any introduction,
"what if there is a secret room somewhere in the library?"
There was a long pause at the other end of the line, and then Scooter's voice, still groggy, said,
Could you repeat that?
Hoggie did.
"That would explain why, after going through every one of the library's rooms, twice through some of them, we couldn't find the mirror," she said in conclusion. "It's not just hidden in the library. It's hidden someplace in the library nobody knows about."
It is possible, Scooter said, but not probable.
"Why?"
Hoggie was disappointed by her friend's reaction to what she considered to be an absolutely brilliant idea.
"Because there simply is no room for a secret room in that library. You've seen the library's floor plan, Hoggie. All the spaces on it are occupied with reading rooms and offices."
But Hoggie wouldn't give up so easily.
"Yeah?" she said. "But how accurate is this plan?"
"I don't know,"
Scooter admitted.
"Exactly. The plan is just something the library printed to help people find books. It doesn't necessarily show all the places in the library. Remember, the stores in the attic? They aren't on the plan either. But we know they exist. We've been there. So, who knows what else has been left out? If only we could lay our hands on the library's construction plans,"
Hoggie said pensively,
"or whatever they are called."
"Blueprints,"
Scooter had a ready answer.
"Yes, that's the word. If only we had a peek at the blueprints, we could see what else is there that we haven't searched yet."
Scooter considered this for a while.
"Well, it is worth checking out,"
he admitted in the end.
"The only problem is,"
Hoggie then said,
"I have no idea where to find these blueprints."
"At the Museum of London,"
Scooter replied, without any hesitation.